Google doubles down again on remote work with a huge rebrand of G Suite. Zoom becomes massively extensible thanks to Zapps, and Pitch launches publicly and is aiming to dethrone PowerPoint. That and more on this week's PLG123. Let's dive in. Tab 1. Tab 1 is from TechCrunch and is about Google's rebrand of G Suite, which they're now calling Google Workspace. So if you're a human being who happens to be alive and it's 2020, there's a good chance you've used Google's productivity software. You know, Gmail, GChat, Calendar, Apps, Docs, Slides, the list goes on. You've probably used something like that, even if your company isn't on G Suite formally. So that whole thing is now called Google Workspace, which I have to be honest with you, it's a pretty good name. More than just a new name, Google has been aggressively investing in this platform in an effort to capitalize on the remote work boom and to capture a lot of productivity software wallet share as the world moves to the cloud. And this year in particular, Google has been very active, and we've talked about on the PLG123 before, the platform wars. Google versus Microsoft, and Zoom's in the mix and Slack's in the mix, and there's been a lot of activity there and a lot of competitive efforts. And Google's goal is not just to create better versions of these products, pixel by pixel and feature by feature, but their goal is also to make an argument around the value of an integrated suite versus a lot of individual applications. And I think a lot of that comes through very strongly as you see this GIF in the TechCrunch article. So this GIF is showing if you're in an email and then you're also in a chat and you need to pull up a document, how can you seamlessly make all of those interactions and all of those collaboration efforts incredibly seamless? And you see exactly that. It's very seamless, all in one pane of glass, and you never navigate away to a different tab. You don't have to set up any integrations because it's all from Google, so it works right out of the box in this integrated, seamless fashion. Even before the whole remote work boom of 2020, there had already been conversations around synchronous versus asynchronous collaboration, and should you be asynchronously communicating on Slack or synchronously having a meeting on Zoom, or how do you think about email, and so on and so forth. With Google Workspace, Google's trying to say, you get it all. You don't have to really fuss about that. Whatever you need for whatever interaction you have with your team, it's all here in one place. So here's what to keep your eye on going forward. Microsoft is clearly going to hit back in some fashion or another. And I'm sure we're also going to see competitive reactions from Slack, Zoom, and other independent players who don't have an entire productivity suite under their belt. Tab 2. Tab 2 is from Zoom and is about the launch of their new integrations platform that they're calling Zapps. A few days back, Zoom announced an advanced integration platform that allows you to have apps inside Zoom. Zoom, apps, Zapps. So that's a good name, right? Although Zapier also calls their things Zapps. So there might be a little bit of a collision course here in the future. Look, Zoom has had integrations for a long time. That is nothing new. But this is a whole new level of integrations. These aren't just simple data syncs or little workflow aids and hacks that you can use to your benefit. Those are great, but this is a whole new level. Zapps does exactly what it sounds like. It brings other apps into Zoom natively. So all of the functionality you'd normally get by opening a separate tab and going to that application itself is now natively inside Zoom, which means that it's natively inside the meeting that you're hosting with other people. For example, you can pull in a folder from Dropbox or Box, and you can be collaborating on the relevant documents versus a hunt and peck and trying to add them into the chat with everybody that's on your Zoom invite. You can pull in a thread or a chat from Slack, and you can have that full conversational experience while you're hosting your Zoom meeting, which is more functionality from a chat perspective than Zoom native chat. In total, there were 25 launch partners across a variety of different software categories and names that you would recognize like Atlassian and Asana, Box and Dropbox, which we already mentioned, Slack, and many others. And that's just the starting point. You can see here a call to developers to develop whatever you might want to see in terms of a Zap. What's really helpful about this Zap gallery is that each of them have a video that shows exactly how that specific Zap works in real life. So here's what to keep your eye on going forward. Zoom directly in this announcement referred to best of breed and referred to best of breed being core to their strategy. And that's a not so subtle reference to tab 1, which we talked about yesterday, which is that there are many players in the space that are taking an all-in-one approach and advocating that that is better for the end user. Google did it, which we talked about with Google Workspace yesterday. Microsoft has made this push with Office 365 and everything that they're doing with Teams. And Zoom is saying that we believe in best of breed as being really what users want and what is ultimately best for them, to give them a bespoke solution that addresses their exact and precise needs for them as a user and for their company as well, given their context, company situation, use case, etc. This is an age-old debate between all-in-one platform and a best-of-breed set of applications that are integrated together, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in this space, although I think it's going to take a lot to dethrone Zoom, that's for sure. Tab 3. Tab 3 is from Product Hunt and is about the public launch of a new company called Pitch. Pitch is a startup out of Berlin and has been much buzzed about in the VC community for a while now. And that's both because they've raised a lot of capital, over $50 million pre-public launch, and it's also because of who their investors are. Incredibly high-profile, awesome investors like Thrive Capital and Index Ventures on the institutional side, but also the co-founders of Instagram, founder of Zoom, founder of Datadog, founder of Superhuman. The list goes on. This is a who's who list of investors, which causes us in the VC community to pay extra close attention to what a company like this is up to. And as you see here in the company blog post, after 2 years of building and a year-long private beta, they finally launched publicly with the Pitch product. So what exactly is Pitch as a product? Very simply put, it's a better way to make presentations and slide decks, which brings up the obvious question. Microsoft PowerPoint and Google Slides are pretty well known and pretty widely used applications for exactly that. So what makes Pitch different? I think the core argument for Pitch, or companies like Pitch, is that they are fundamentally at a first principles level thinking about the problem differently. And specifically, what exactly is a presentation? Is it an Office document or is it a design asset? Best I can tell, Pitch believes that it's the latter, a design asset. In today's day and age, they're used for sales and marketing. Whether you're selling your company to investors or selling your product to customers, you're using a deck to tell that story. And so you're telling the story of your product, you're telling the story of your company, you're telling the story of your brand, which again sounds a lot like a design asset, much more so than a boring Office document. If you use this mindset, you start to see that PowerPoint or slides, or in Pitch in this case, is a design tool. And with that in mind, it's probably the most widely used design tool on Earth, more so than anything from Photoshop and certainly anything from Figma, Sketch, or the other rising stars. But I think we can all relate that as a design tool, it's rather cumbersome and rather restricted. And so enter Pitch. How can we make presentations more designy? And how can we make the tools that build those presentations much more like design tools that you would expect in 2020, as opposed to Office-oriented document authoring solutions from a prior generation? As you scroll through the product side of Pitch's website, you'll see all this coming through. It looks, again, a lot more like a design tool. So here's what to keep your eye on in the future. When you're fighting against two large incumbents that are widely used and very much entrenched and themselves have ubiquity, it's not going to be easy. And I think the biggest challenge is just awareness. But there is an example that occurs to me that's very parallel to Pitch, and that's Canva. Now, Canva did not go knocking on Adobe's front door and try to defeat them head on in the core use cases that the Adobe Creative Cloud offers. Instead, they said, let's rethink what design means. Let's focus on a different audience, in their case, oftentimes non-designers, marketers who are thinking about social media assets and high velocity campaigns that need to be done on a daily basis. So by focusing on a different user and a different use case, they were able to effectively Trojan horse their way into really one of the main pillars of the design tools ecosystem at this point. And I think a similar opportunity exists for Pitch with its big incumbents in Microsoft and Google. Well, that does it for this week on the PLG123. Make sure to follow me on LinkedIn for more daily PLG content, and stay tuned for our weekly episode drops of the PLG123 coming at you right here on LinkedIn. Hope you guys are having a great week, and take care.